August 28th, 1944, 14:30 hours. Wehrmacht High Command, Nancy, France. Generaloberst Johannes Blaskowitz spread the captured intelligence report across his oak desk. The paper smelled of cigarette smoke and diesel. They're moving. What? 12,000 tons per day? He looked up at his logistics officer, Major Klaus Hoffmann. With trucks? Hoffmann adjusted his spectacles. The numbers didn't lie, even if they seemed absurd. Jawohl, Herr General. American supply convoys, operating day and night between Normandy and the forward positions. Blaskowitz laughed. Not a chuckle. A full dismissive belly laugh that echoed off the stone walls. Trucks. American trucks. He tossed the report aside. Do you know what happens to truck engines after 200 kilometers of continuous operation? They seize. The transmissions fail. The axles snap. He stood, walking to the situation map. Red pins marked German positions retreating across France. Blue pins, American forces, advanced like a flood at Squirts. Our own motorized divisions can barely maintain 30% vehicle availability. And these cowboys think they can sustain an entire army group with civilian trucks driven by. What does it say here? He picked up the report again. Colored troops with minimal training? Hoffmann nodded. The intelligence suggests 75% of the drivers are Negroes, sir. Support personnel, not even combat troops. Exactly. Blaskowitz's voice dripped with certainty. Patton has outrun his supply lines. Basic logistics. Every officer learns this at Academy. You cannot advance faster than your supply chain can support. It's physics, Hoffmann. Mathematics. The Americans are brilliant tacticians, yes, but they're fighting 400 kilometers from their supply depots. He pointed at the map with his cigarette. Patton will be out of fuel within a week. 2 at most. His tanks will become statues. His infantry will dig in. And we will have the time we desperately need to fortify the Rhine. The room fell silent, except for the tick of the wall clock. Hoffmann cleared his throat. And if they maintain the supply flow, sir? Blaskowitz turned, eyes hard. They won't! They can't! The laws of mechanized warfare don't bend for American optimism. He was wrong. Dead wrong. What Generaloberst Johannes Blaskowitz didn't know, what his entire general staff couldn't comprehend, was that 23,000 men were about to rewrite the rules of modern warfare. Not with tanks, not with artillery, with 2.5-ton trucks, improvised logistics, and a level of determination that would make the impossible routine. And it started with one word scrawled in red paint on bumpers from Normandy to the German frontier. August 24th, 1944. 2100 hours. Motor pool staging area. Cherbourg, France. Private First Class. William Willie McBride had driven exactly 3 vehicles before the Army handed him the keys to a GMC CCCKW 353. A tractor on his grandfather's farm in Alabama, a delivery truck for 6 months in Birmingham, and a Jeep during basic training at Fort Knox. Now, he stood next to 5 tons of steel, wood, and canvas, a deuce-and-a-half cargo truck that smelled like diesel, motor oil, and someone's forgotten lunch. You know how to double clutch? Asked his co-driver, a kid from Detroit named Jerome Washington, 20 years old, thin as a reed. Willie shook his head, drove a Farmall, had 1 gear forward. Jerome laughed, but it died in his throat when Sergeant James Ruckert approached. Ruckert was 28, ancient by truck company standards, and had actually driven delivery trucks in Cleveland before the war. Listen up. Ruckart's voice cut through the motor pool noise engines starting, gears grinding, men shouting over the industrial symphony. You two are crew number 847. Your truck is your life. Your cargo is your mission. Your schedule is this: drive until you can't see straight. Sleep 4 hours. Drive again. Willie felt something cold settle in his stomach. The route is 400 kilometers one way. Cherbourg to Chartres, then Chartres to wherever Third Army needs supplies that day. Sometimes Alençon, sometimes Le Mans, sometimes right up to the front lines near the German border. Jerome raised his hand. Sergeant, that's 54 hours round trip if you maintain speed. The convoy is supposed to run at 25 miles per hour. You'll run at 60. 60? Willie's voice cracked. Sir, these trucks ain't built for... I don't care what they're built for. I care what they're going to do. Roucard stepped closer. The August night was humid, 72 degrees, but Willie felt sweat running down his spine. General Patton is 200 miles into France. His tanks drink 400 gallons of fuel per day, each. He's got over 400 tanks. You do the math. Nobody did the math. They just stared. The Krauts think we're finished. They think Patton ran out of gas and now they've got time to build defenses. They're counting on us failing. Roucard pointed at the endless line of trucks. GMC Jimmys, Dodge WC-63S, some international harvesters, all painted in olive drab, all marked with a red circle on the bumper and canvas. That red ball means priority freight. In railroad terms, it means this cargo doesn't stop for nothing. In our terms, it means you drive through blackouts, air raids, exhaustion, and anything else the universe throws at you. Willie looked at Jerome. Jerome looked at the truck. One more thing. Roucard's voice softened just slightly. They put us on this job because they don't think combat units can spare the men. Because they think driving trucks is simple. Because... He didn't finish. Didn't need to. Every man in that motor pool knew exactly why 75% of the Red Ball Express drivers were black soldiers. The U.S. Army was segregated. Black men couldn't lead white troops, couldn't eat in the same mess halls, couldn't use the same latrines. But they could drive trucks 20 hours a day on roads that became rivers when it rained, through territories where German Luftwaffe pilots would strafe anything that moved. They could do the impossible work, the thankless work, the work that German generals, with their obsession over Prussian military doctrine and mechanized warfare theory, couldn't imagine succeeding. 2,300 hours, same night. Load master station. Willie backed truck 847 up to the loading dock. The air reeked of gasoline. Tanker trucks were filling 5-gallon jerry cans by the hundreds. Each GMC CCCKW could carry 5,000 pounds. That's 200 jerry cans, 1,000 gallons of fuel. The loaders worked in assembly lines. White soldiers, black soldiers, French civilians pressed into service. 1 can every 3 seconds. Lifted, secured. Next can. The trucks groaned under the weight. "Check your oil," Jerome said, popping the hood. The GMC 270 engine, 6 cylinders, 104 horsepower, was already warm from idling. Manual says check it every 500 miles. We're going to check it every load. Willie peered under the chassis. Tires? Prey. The Red Ball Express operated 5,958 vehicles at its peak. These weren't military-grade haulers built for punishment. They were commercial truck designs modified for war. The GMC CCCKW had a reputation. Reliable until it wasn't. The engine could overheat. The transmission, A 4-speed manual with a 2-speed transfer case could strip gears if you didn't double-clutch perfectly. The Dodge trucks were better, but there weren't enough of them. And maintenance? Forget it. There wasn't time. A white officer walked past. Seat, Second Lieutenant Frank Morrison. He glanced at Willie and Jerome, then at the truck. "You boys know how to drive stick?" Willie nodded. "You better." Morrison moved on, checking the next truck in line. Jerome whispered, "He give you that test?" "What test?" "The one where they ask if you can read. Then they're surprised when you can." Willie didn't respond. His hands were shaking, not from fear, from fatigue. He'd already driven 6 hours during training runs. His shift was supposed to end 2 hours ago. August 25th, 1944, 0145 hours, route departure. The convoy rolled out in darkness. No headlights, total blackout. Only small slit lights, barely visible, marking the truck ahead. Willie gripped the steering wheel. The truck lurched forward in first gear, then second, then third. The engine roared. The canvas cover flapped in the slipstream. Behind them, 900 other trucks did the same. Ahead, 900 more were already on the road, racing toward Chartres with yesterday's loads. "Keep it at 60-yard intervals," Rucard had said. "Don't bunch up. Don't fall behind. If your truck breaks down, pull it off the road and hitch a ride back." Willie pressed the accelerator. The speedometer climbed past 40, past 50. The narrow French roads, built for horses and bicycles, blurred in the darkness. Somewhere out there, German generals were calculating fuel consumption rates, vehicle maintenance cycles, and driver fatigue factors. They were calculating wrong. August 26, 1944, 0630 hours, supply dump, Charlie, Chartres, France. Willie hadn't slept in 22 hours. The truck coughed into the depot like a dying animal. Steam hissed from the radiator. The brakes squealed metal on metal, but it made it. "Unload, 30 minutes." A quartermaster sergeant with a clipboard waved them toward an unloading station. 20 men descended on truck 847. Jerry cans came off in a coordinated frenzy. 200 cans in 28 minutes. Willie couldn't even count anymore. Everything was numbers, numbers, and motion. Jerome stumbled out of the cab, face gray with exhaustion. "Coffee?" Willie asked. "Benzodrine," Jerome muttered. He held up a small white tablet. "Medic gave me 2. 1 for you." Willie stared at it. Benzodrine sulfate. The Army called them PEP pills. Kept bomber pilots alert over Germany. Kept infantry awake in foxholes. And now kept truck drivers from plowing into trees at 60 miles per hour. He swallowed it dry. 0700 hours. The truth. German intelligence missed, while Willie and Jerome grabbed stale donuts and watered-down coffee. 400 miles east, German logistics officers were analyzing captured American documents. Hauptmann Werner Koch spread supply requisitions across his table at Wehrmacht High Command. "Look at this," he pointed at a manifest. "Third Army consumed 800,000 gallons of fuel yesterday. Repeat, yesterday. That's more than our entire Army Group G used in a week." His aide, Lieutenant Dieter Schmidt, leaned in. "How are they sustaining this?" "They're not. They can't be. These figures assume perfect conditions. Trucks running at optimal loads, no breakdowns, roads in good repair, drivers working in shifts." He looked up. "It's theoretically impossible." And yet Patton's tanks are still advancing. Koch lit a cigarette, hands trembling. "We destroyed the French rail system. Allied bombers did half our work for us. Every bridge from Normandy to Paris is rubble. They should be starving for supplies. What Koch didn't understand, what no German officer could grasp, was that the Americans had weaponized chaos. German military logistics was a science, precise, calculated, based on railroad timetables, supply depots positioned at mathematically optimal intervals, and vehicle maintenance schedules that ensured 85% operational readiness. The Red Ball Express was none of that. It was improvised madness that somehow worked. Brigadier General Ewart G. Plank created something radical. 2 parallel routes. 1 route north, empty trucks returning to Cherbourg. 1 route south, loaded trucks racing to the front. No intersections, no stops, no civilian traffic. Military police guarded every crossroads. Red Ball trucks had absolute right-of-way. If a general's staff car needed to cross, it waited. If an infantry column needed the road, it waited. For 82 days, 2 ribbons of French highway belonged exclusively to supply trucks. The Germans, with their rigid doctrine, never conceived of reserving entire highways for logistics. Their supply convoys shared roads with combat units, refugees, and horse-drawn artillery wagons. Traffic jams lasted hours. American trucks didn't stop moving. 2. The driver rotation that wasn't. Military doctrine said drivers needed 8 hours rest per 24-hour cycle. Truck maintenance required 4 hours daily. Convoys should travel at safe speeds with proper intervals. Red Ball drivers ignored all of it. Willie and Jerome worked on a brutal system. 1 drove, 1 navigated. They switched every 3 hours. Rest meant closing your eyes, while your partner took the wheel on roads filled with potholes, hairpin turns, and abandoned German equipment. When their eyes crossed from fatigue, they pulled over, splashed water on their faces from canteens, popped Benzedrine, and drove on. Some drivers claimed to hallucinate by day 3, seeing phantom vehicles, hearing voices, but they drove. 3. The maintenance miracle. Chanti MC, CCKW engines were supposed to last 50,000 miles before overhaul. Red Ball trucks were running 400-mile loops daily. That's 24,600 miles in 82 days, half their designed lifespan. And they weren't getting proper maintenance. There was no time. Instead, field mechanics performed rolling triage. Broken trucks got cannibalized. If a transmission died, they'd pull a transmission from another dead truck and swap it in 45 minutes. A job that should take 4 hours. Oil leaking? Top it off and go. Brakes squealing? They still brake. Engine overheating? Drive at night when it's cooler. The trucks should have failed. Every mechanical engineering principle said they'd fail. But American industrial design, overbuilt, simple, repairable with basic tools, kept them rolling. 4. The human element no calculator could predict. Private Charles Johnson from the 783rd Military Police Battalion stood at intersection 7 near Versailles for 16 hours straight. His job was simple: keep the Red Ball moving. At 0340 hours, on August 29th, a Wehrmacht Messerschmitt Bf 110 night fighter spotted the convoy. The pilot, Oberleutnant Hans Müller, couldn't believe his eyes. "Hundreds of them," he radioed. "Headlights off, but I can see them in moonlight. An entire highway filled with trucks." He made 2 strafing runs. 20mm cannon fire tore through 3 trucks. 1 exploded, gasoline fireball lighting up the night. 9 men died. The convoy didn't stop. Trucks swerved around the burning wreckage. Charles Johnson waved them on, one after another, while ammunition cooked off in the flames. 0900 hours, same day, Wehrmacht Analysis Center. Hauptmann Koch received the pilot's report. Hundreds of trucks, at night, moving at speed, under blackout conditions. He set down the paper. They're insane. Schmidt pulled out a logistics manual. Sir, night driving without lights increases accident rates by 700%. Driver fatigue compounds every hour. By any reasonable model, their casualty rate from accidents alone should halt operations within 2 weeks. Koch stared at the map. Red ball routes marked in grease pencil. Blue arrows showing American advances. They're losing trucks. They must be. Accidents, mechanical failure, our air raids. But they're replacing them faster than they lose them. Schmidt's voice went quiet. Sir, what if they can sustain this? Cochio didn't answer. He was calculating numbers that didn't make sense. The United States had more trucks in their army than the Wehrmacht had total vehicles, including motorcycles, including bicycles. The German army relied on 2.7 million horses for logistics, horses that needed food, water, rest, and couldn't carry a tenth of what a truck could. America had built 2.5 million trucks since 1940. Many were civilian models drafted into service, yes, but they existed. They were replaceable. Every truck the Red Ball Express lost, and they lost hundreds, was replaced within days from depots in England. When a German truck broke down, it might sit for weeks waiting for parts from factories that didn't exist anymore because Allied bombers had turned them into rubble. The ironic twist. The Germans never saw. American truck drivers weren't trained mechanics, weren't professional long-haul operators. Many had been sharecroppers, factory workers, janitors, men the Army deemed unsuitable for combat. But they understood work. Brutal, grinding, thankless work. Willie McBride once picked cotton 14 hours a day in Alabama heat. Jerome Washington worked the assembly line at Ford's River Rouge plant, where lunch breaks were 12 minutes and falling asleep meant getting fired. The Red Ball Express asked them to drive until their hands cramped and their vision blurred. They'd been doing that their entire lives. German logistics officers trained in Prussian military academies calculated human endurance based on textbook maximums. They'd never met men who had no choice but to exceed those maximums. Every single day. September 1st, 1944. The breaking point that never broke. Willie's truck, number 847, had completed 11 round trips. That's 8,800 kilometers. The odometer stopped working after trip 7. The suspension was shot. The steering pulled left so hard his arms ached. One headlight was missing. The windshield had a cracked spider webbing across the passenger side. Jerome slept in the passenger seat, mouth open, drool on his collar. They'd been on the road for 17 hours. Willie saw the crossroads ahead, intersection 12 near Alençon. A military police checkpoint with signs. Paris 90 kilometers. Front lines 60 kilometers. And there, on the side of the road, a German prisoner of war column. Maybe 200 men, exhausted, dirty. Hands behind their heads as American guards walked them toward a POW camp. One German looked up as Willie passed. A young soldier, maybe 20, blonde hair, face hollow with fatigue. Their eyes met for 3 seconds. The German saw the red ball painted on the truck bumper. saw the endless line of vehicles stretching to the horizon behind Willie, saw the supplies that kept coming, no matter what. And Willie saw defeat in that soldier's eyes. Not the defeat of battle, the defeat of understanding. They couldn't stop this. Nobody could stop this. September 3rd, 1944. 15:20 hours. German 7th Army Headquarters, Metz. General Feldmarschall Walter Model slammed his fist on the table. Patton is at the Moselle. The Moselle, that's 400 kilometers from Normandy, in 5 weeks. His staff officers stood frozen. Nobody wanted to be the first to speak. How much fuel do we estimate his Third Army has consumed? Model's voice was ice. Oberst Heinrich Freiherr von Luttwitz checked his notes. Based on combat operations, reconnaissance flights, and captured documents, approximately 4.2 million gallons in the past 2 weeks, Herr Feldmarschall. And we bombed their supply depots? Ja, Luftwaffe hit targets near Chartres 3 times, destroyed, by our estimates, 800 tons of supplies. Model's eyes narrowed. 800 tons. Out of how many delivered? Von Luttwitz hesitated. Our intelligence suggests 75,000 tons per week. The American truck operation, they call it Red Ball Express, is moving 12,500 tons per day. The room fell silent. 12,500 tons per day. That's 250,000 gallons of fuel, 100 tons of ammunition, 40 tons of rations, medical supplies, replacement parts, everything an army needed to keep fighting. Every single day. Model walked to the map. His fingers traced the roads from Cherbourg to the current front lines. Show me their route. Von Luttwitz used a red marker. 2 parallel highways, Herr Feldmarschall, northbound and southbound, exclusive use for supply convoys. Approximately 6,000 trucks in continuous rotation. 6,000 trucks. Model's voice was barely a whisper. We have, what? Maybe 2,000 operational trucks in our entire army group? 1,847, sir, as of yesterday's report. Model felt something he hadn't experienced since Stalingrad, the cold creep of inevitable defeat. Not from combat, from mathematics. They're moving more supplies in one day than we can move in a week. With trucks, just trucks. He turned to his logistics officer, Major General Walter Warlimont. Tell me why our analysis said this was impossible. Warlimont cleared his throat. Sir, the calculations were based on standard military logistics doctrine. Truck engines require maintenance every 800 kilometers. Drivers need regulated rest. Roads must support civilian and military traffic. They ignored doctrine, Model interrupted. They built a system that shouldn't work, and it's working. The moment of realization. Model wasn't a fool. He'd commanded panzer divisions in Russia, fought the Red Army to a standstill at Kursk, orchestrated retreats that saved entire armies from encirclement. But this wasn't combat. This was industrial warfare on a scale Germany couldn't match. How many horses do we have supporting 7th Army logistics? He asked. Warlimont flipped through his ledger. Approximately 48,000 horses, sir. And each horse can carry, what, 200 pounds? In optimal conditions? Yes, sir. Model did the math in his head. 48,000 horses times 200 pounds equals 9,600,000 pounds. That's 4,800 tons. 1 day of Red Ball Express deliveries was 12,500 tons, almost 3 times what his entire horse-drawn supply system could carry. And horses needed rest. Food, water, veterinary care. Horses died from exhaustion, disease, Allied air attacks. When a horse died, it took months to get a replacement. When an American truck broke down, a new one appeared the next day. "Gentlemen," Model said quietly, "we are fighting the wrong war." September 5th, 1944. The moment promised in the title. Generaloberst Johannes Blaskowitz, the officer who'd laughed at American logistics 11 days earlier, received an intelligence briefing at his command post in Belfort. The aide spread photographs across the table. Aerial reconnaissance from a Focke-Wulf FAW 189 that barely escaped an American P-51 Mustang. The photos showed Route Nationale 13 near Chartres. Truck after truck after truck after truck. The convoy stretched for kilometers, each vehicle marked with a red circle. The images captured them in motion, blurred from speed. "When was this taken?" Blaskowitz asked. 0230 hours today, sir. No moon. Our pilot said he could hear the engines from 1,000 meters. Blaskowitz picked up another photo. A supply dump. Mountains of jerry cans. Ammunition crates stacked 3 meters high. Medical supplies. Food. Enough material to supply 5 divisions. This is one dump? One of 7, Herr General, between Chartres and Alençon. Blaskowitz set down the photo. His hands weren't steady. He remembered his words from August 28th. Patton will be out of fuel within a week. It was September 5th. Patton hadn't slowed down. His Third Army had advanced 200 additional kilometers. They'd liberated dozens of towns. They were approaching the German border. "Get me the projections," Blaskowitz said. "How long can they sustain this?" His logistics officer, Major Klaus Hoffmann, the same officer who'd brought him the initial report, pulled out a folder. "Sir, based on observed operations, the Red Ball Express has moved 410,000 tons of supplies as of yesterday. They show no signs of operational degradation." "Degradation?" Blaskowitz's voice rose. "Hoffman, you told me their system would collapse from mechanical failures." "It should have, sir. By all calculations, truck breakdown rates should exceed 40% after 2 weeks of continuous operation." He paused. "American breakdown rates are holding at 15%. How?" "We don't know, sir. Our doctrine assumes proper maintenance protocols. The Americans appear to be improvising, cannibalizing broken vehicles, performing repairs that should take hours in minutes. Their mechanics are working 20-hour shifts." Blaskowitz laughed again, but this time it wasn't dismissive. It was bitter, hollow. "We mocked them, their colored troops, their commercial trucks, their cowboy logistics." He looked at the photos. "And they're supplying an army faster than we ever could with our railway system intact." The evidence kept mounting, day after day. September 7th. A German artillery barrage destroyed a Red Ball convoy near Le Mans. 8 trucks consumed by fire. 14 men casualties. The convoy reformed around the burning vehicles and continued. Replacement trucks arrived from Cherbourg within 36 hours. September 10th. Luftwaffe bombers hit supply dump Delta at Dreux, destroyed 200 tons of ammunition and 40,000 gallons of fuel. Third Army operations didn't pause for even a day. September 15th. A massive traffic accident near Versailles. 3 trucks collided, blocking the southbound route for 2 hours. Red Ball Express rerouted through side roads. Deliveries that day, 11,800 tons, only 700 tons below average. September 18th. German intelligence captured a Red Ball driver, Corporal Samuel Davis, from Chicago. During interrogation, he revealed that drivers were working 20-hour shifts. The German intelligence officer, Hauptmann Karl Becker, wrote in his report, "Subject claims he has driven for 16 consecutive days with less than 4 hours sleep per day. Medical examination confirms severe fatigue but no delirium. Subject appears coherent. Morale inexplicably high." American supply lines will collapse within 2 weeks due to mechanical failures, driver fatigue, and lack of proper infrastructure. Patton's advance will stall at the Meuse River. We will have 6 weeks to fortify defenses and prepare counteroffensives. After German reality in September. American supply operations continue to exceed all projections. Third Army has advanced to German border. Our defensive preparations are insufficient. Recommend immediate withdrawal to Rhine fortifications. Model sent a memo to Wehrmacht High Command on September 20th. The American truck convoy system represents a revolution in military logistics. Their willingness to sacrifice vehicle longevity and driver health for maximum throughput has negated our advantage in interior lines. We cannot match their supply capacity. Recommend we focus on disrupting their fuel sources rather than intercepting convoys, as replacement rate exceeds our destruction rate by 3:1. In military language, that meant, "We can't stop them. We're losing." September 25, 1944. The numbers German generals couldn't escape. In 82 days of operation, the Red Ball Express moved 412,193 tons of supplies, 5 million gallons of fuel, 135,000 tons of ammunition, enough food to feed 400,000 men for 2 months. They did this with 23,000 drivers and support personnel, 5,958 trucks at peak operation, 900 vehicles on the road at any given moment, 6,000 jerry cans loaded per hour. A truck completing the round trip every 54 hours. The human cost? 79 drivers killed in action. Enemy fire, accidents, exhaustion. 400-plus vehicles destroyed beyond repair. Thousands of minor accidents. 0 days when the supply flow stopped. The impact. General George S. Patton's Third Army advanced 600 miles in 82 days, from Normandy to the German frontier. They liberated Paris, dozens of French towns, and brought the war to Germany's doorstep. Without the Red Ball Express, Patton would have run out of fuel in early September. The advance would have stalled. The Germans would have had months to prepare defenses, possibly prolonging the war into 1946. American perspective. Private James Rucard, interviewed 1978. "People ask me how we did it. How did we drive 20 hours a day? How did we stay awake? And I tell them, you do what you have to do. The guys at the front were fighting and dying. We were driving. Seemed like the easier job, even if it didn't feel easy at the time." Brigadier General Ewart G. Plank. Official report, November 1944. The Red Ball Express succeeded because it violated every established principle of logistics management. In doing so, it proved that doctrine must serve reality, not the other way around. Corporal Jerome Washington. Letter home, September 1944. "Mama, they work us like mules, but when we roll into those supply dumps and see the infantry waiting for ammunition, waiting for food, and we got both, it matters. Even if nobody thanks us, even if nobody remembers, it matters." German perspective. General Feldmarschall Walter Model. Memo, September 1944. "The American capacity for improvisation and industrial mobilization exceeds our previous intelligence estimates by orders of magnitude. Their logistic system, though crude, achieves results our more refined systems cannot match." Oberst Heinrich Freiherr von Luttwitz, interrogation transcript, May 1945. We underestimated them. Not their tanks, not their aircraft, their trucks. Sounds ridiculous, yes? But wars aren't won by just weapons. They're won by the beans and bullets those weapons consume. The Americans understood this. We did not. Hauptmann Werner Koch, diary entry, October 1944. I calculated the numbers 3 times. Each time I reached the same conclusion. Impossible. Yet the evidence before my eyes contradicts every mathematical model. Perhaps this is the difference between German precision and American pragmatism. We seek perfection. They seek results. The long-term implications. The Red Ball. Express ended operations on November 16, 1944, when the port of Antwerp finally opened. But its impact echoed for decades. Military doctrine. Modern military logistics, from the Berlin airlift to Operation Desert Storm, adopted the just-in-time principles the Red Ball Express pioneered. Continuous flow logistics replaced stockpile-based systems. Civil rights. The success of 23,000 predominantly black drivers in a critical military role challenged segregation narratives. When President Truman desegregated the military in 1948, the Red Ball Express was cited as evidence that black soldiers performed at the highest levels when given the opportunity. Industrial impact. GMC's CCK.IDC-2W truck became legendary. Over 812,000 were built during the war. Surplus deuce-and-a-half trucks served in construction, agriculture, and disaster relief worldwide for decades. The last ones were retired from active military service in the 1990s, 50 years after they were built. Logistics innovation. The Red Ball Express proved that throwing resources at a problem, accepting higher short-term costs, vehicle wear, human exhaustion, could achieve strategic objectives impossible through conservative planning. This doctrine influenced everything from Amazon's delivery systems to disaster relief operations. The Red Ball Express wasn't just a logistics operation, it was a statement. The United States could outproduce, outsupply, and outsustain any opponent. Not through superior tactics, through industrial might and human determination. Germany's generals were products of 19th century Prussian military thought. Elegant, precise, doctrine-driven. They calculated logistics like chess moves, optimizing for efficiency. America approached war like a factory floor. Throw more resources at it. Work around the clock. If something breaks, fix it fast and keep moving. Replace losses faster than you take them. German officers called it wasteful, unsustainable, barbaric. They also called it unstoppable. Private Willie McBride completed 14 round trips before his truck's transmission finally gave out for good on September 28. By then, he'd driven over 11,000 kilometers, roughly the distance from New York to Tokyo. He weighed 18 pounds less than when he started. His hands had permanent calluses from the steering wheel. He'd gone partially deaf in his left ear from the engine noise. And when asked if he'd do it again, he said, "If they needed me to." That's what Generaloberst Blaskowitz never understood. You can calculate vehicle failure rates, driver fatigue factors, fuel consumption metrics. You can't calculate what men will endure when they believe in the mission. 80 years after the first convoy rolled out, the highway between Cherbourg and Chartres bears commemorative markers, small red circles painted on posts every 50 kilometers. Most drivers speeding past at 130 kilometers per hour don't notice them. Willie McBride died in 1987 at age 65. Heart attack. He never talked much about the war. When his granddaughter asked him what he did in World War II, he shrugged. Drove trucks. Jerome Washington lived until 2001. At his funeral, they played taps and folded a flag. The obituary mentioned his service in the Red Ball Express. One paragraph between mentions of his work at Ford and his grandchildren. James Rookard gave one interview in 1978, then refused all others. "We did our job," he said. "Don't need medals. Don't need movies. We did what needed doing." Most of the 23,000 drivers are gone now. The few remaining are in their late 90s. They gather every few years, smaller numbers each time, and they tell stories about the trucks, the roads, the loads. They don't talk about being heroes. Soldiers on the front lines were heroes. They were just guys who kept the trucks rolling. Those just guys changed warfare forever. They proved that logistics isn't boring, isn't secondary, isn't just math and spreadsheets. Logistics is everything. Napoleon said an army marches on its stomach. The Red Ball Express proved an army races on its fuel tanks. The German generals who laughed at American truck drivers learned this lesson too late. By the time they understood what they were facing, Patton was across France. By the time they adjusted their strategy, the war was over. Generaloberst Johannes Blaskowitz surrendered to Allied forces in May 1945. Before his death later that year, he wrote in a personal letter, "We lost the war in many ways, on many fronts, but perhaps we lost it first, on the roads of France, when we underestimated the power of simple trucks and the men who drove them." What's the lesson in all this? Maybe it's that experts aren't always right. German officers studied logistics for decades, built systems perfected through 2 major wars. American officers improvised a truck convoy in 36 hours. The improvisation won. Maybe it's that human determination breaks mathematical models. Every calculation said the Red Ball Express should fail. The drivers didn't know that, or didn't care. Maybe it's simpler. Never underestimate people who've spent their lives doing impossible things. Willie McBride picked cotton under the Alabama sun for 14 hours a day. Driving a truck for 20 hours seemed hard, until you compared it to every other day of his life. The German generals calculated endurance limits from their own experience. Officers who'd never worked a 20-hour shift, who'd never been denied rest because the alternative was losing your job, who'd never understood that can't isn't an option when you have no choice. They calculated human limits based on privilege. The Red Ball Express ran on men who'd exceeded those limits since childhood. August 28, 1944. Generaloberst Blaskowitz, looking at intelligence reports and laughing, "Patton will be out of fuel within a week." September 5, 1944. Blaskowitz, looking at photographs of endless truck convoys, voice hollow, "We mocked them." The Red Ball Express wasn't about trucks. It was about 23,000 men, most of them black, most of them dismissed as unsuitable for combat, most of them earning lower pay than white soldiers doing easier jobs, proving that the fuel of war isn't just gasoline. It's grit, determination, the willingness to drive through exhaustion, through danger, through doubt, because someone ahead needs you to. German generals saw colored troops and civilian trucks. They saw weakness. They should have seen what those men had survived just to reach that moment. Should have understood that anyone who'd endured Jim Crow America, who'd been told their entire lives they weren't good enough, who'd fought for the chance to serve a country that didn't fully accept them, those men wouldn't be stopped by fatigue or fear or impossible logistics. The Red Ball Express fed Patton's tanks. But it starved German assumptions, choked their timelines, ran over their calculations. And when the war ended, when the victory parades rolled through New York and Paris and London, the Red Ball drivers went home to lives that still included segregation, discrimination, and inequality. But they'd done something no German general thought possible. They'd driven trucks so hard and so long that they changed the outcome of World War II. Picture this. Night, September 1944. A single GMC CCCKW on a dark French road. The engine roars, the truck sways. The driver's eyes are bloodshot, his hands white-knuckled on the wheel. In the back, 200 jerry cans of fuel, each one carrying 5 gallons that'll keep a Sherman tank rolling for 20 miles. That driver can't see Patton's Third Army, can't see the front lines, can't see the German generals calculating his failure. He just sees the road. One more mile, one more load, one more trip. And that is what won the war in the West. Not brilliance, not doctrine, not perfectly calculated logistics. Men who refused to stop driving.